Hey Tampa Bay, we're with you for another week to talk about the local real estate market here on the Duncan Duo Show. Joined by my normal co-hosts, Mike Yates with Atlantic Bay Mortgage and Robert Johnson with my real estate team at the Duncan Duo. And a special guest today, Bob Henriquez from the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser is going to come on to talk to us today. We're going to start off our first segment really talking to him about trim notices that are coming out and assessments. And so, Bob, you guys have some important dates coming up for trim notices going out, so people are well informed about their tax bill and kind of know what's coming, and then explaining the difference between a trim notice and then the actual bill itself.
Absolutely, Andrew. It's great to be here as always. Sorry about your broken
leg. Yeah,
a
little bit of an injury that I'm coping with. So
that's right.
Basketball is not kind to me. I'm getting too old. Eventually, I'm going to listen
to check your body couldn't quite catch.
Yes, right? Yeah. Eventually, I'm going to listen, but right now, I'm not listening to my body. I'm going to keep playing until I. My wife always says that someday you're going to pick up golf, and I'm like, because I literally have never played a round of golf ever, never a whole round.
I can't see you enjoying golf.
So for me, I've always played basketball, and I was a really good baseball player too. So I even played softball for a while. But my point is, I'll play golf when I can't play basketball anymore, and the time is very near.
Yeah.
So you guys will see me out there with the clubs pretty soon.
Very good. Well, it's that time of year. August is when we send out the trim notices. For the listeners, the trim notice is technically it's called the truth in millage, but basically it's your notice of proposed taxes. It's a very important piece of paper. A lot of people don't read it because it's not a bill, or it says not a bill on the top, but it literally has every bit of information that you may need or want to read, and some you may not want to, about what goes into your proposed taxes for the following year. We'll be mailing those out. The mail date is August 20th. They'll go out during the week. We phase it over the course of the week, but the actual mail date is August 20th. And you have, from that date, you have 25 days to file a Value Adjustment Board petition should you have an issue with the information that's in that trim notice. We'd encourage folks to contact us first and see if we can try to answer their questions.
Sounds like Mike Yates has he wants to contest. He didn't like his $100,000 increase, but you did buy it for a lot more.
And you saw that on the website, right? You didn't get your trim notice yet.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so mine, and this is something we talk about on the show a lot too, is when you have a homeowner that's lived there a lot with their homestead exemption and the caps that go along with that. When the property changes hands, a lot of times the taxes can reset at that point.
And they're going to go up when the market is. I mean, if it's somebody that's owned it a long time, it's likely the value's more. And especially if they bought it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Because I bought a house in 17, so the cap reset as of January 1st of 2018. Remember, we're historians, so the trim notice you'll receive over the next month or so is based on January 1st of 2018. Yep. Largely based on information that we gather for the last quarter of 2017. So we had the same thing. We had a homeowner who had been there for a number of years in the house that we bought through the Duncan Duo.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate the business. Karen did a rock solid job.
I just made all the other realtors bad.
That's okay. None of them are listening.
That's what I hope. That's true. They should, though. They might pick something up. So it's the same thing, but what happens is really a couple different numbers. One is your actual just or market value, and so really the property was already worth that. Right. But then there's your taxable value. That's the capped value that people actually pay on, which is the value based on the time that they homesteaded the property, and the cap is 3% or CPI, whichever is less. Obviously, over the last few years, the CPI or inflation has been very low, so it's slowly been rising. So there is a differential there between the just or market value that resets, and the taxable value that will reset, and you kind of start your cap all over again. And of course, I'm sure that you filed homestead exemption with us, so you'll be able to take that off as well. And then, did you have portability from your previous one?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
No. He's a new resident in Tampa. It's the first time home here. One thing that I find interesting, and I think a lot of people, miss this. A lot of people, I think, fail to file the homestead exemption. A few years ago, back in the glory days. Title companies would actually fill out the homestead application at closing with the customer. But I know there were some mistakes, and then there was, I think, one like major lawsuit where somebody screwed something up, and then all the title companies pretty much wholesale all stopped doing it. So now the customer has to do it themselves, and they have to be reminded. We recorded a video talking about it. We send reminders like crazy to our customers to make sure they remember. But a lot of people don't, and that's a good reminder for them to look and see. Okay, what exemptions am I getting? Am I getting the ones I'm supposed to get? And if not, then I need to take action.
Absolutely, and what we're doing right now actually is putting together a brochure that has the information and possibly even an application in it that we're going to give to the title companies that they possibly. Of course, you walk out of there with
so much paperwork.
With so much paperwork, but maybe something that folks can kind of jog their
memory a little bit
to do this. We're trying to find every way that we can to reach out to folks. We've made it as easy as possible to file a homestead exemption. The online process is very simple. You can do it in any number of ways. You can do it online. You can do it in one of our branch offices, or you can mail it in. One of the things that I would encourage folks as well is when they do that, is to give us, in some cases they're not required to by law, but we like, if they can, to give us an email address, and then we can stay in contact with it throughout the process in case there's something amiss. There's a question, there's something that's amiss in their application or what have you, and then we can let them know in the same way. My thought was to make it as close to like as Amazon as you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what people expect.
Yeah.
In the past, people would file an application. Let's say they bought a home early in the year. Well, it really didn't take effect until the following year, and our office would just kind of, check the website sometime in the future. Well, I want to be in contact with these folks, let them know you have all the information in, it's in process, when it's approved, send them something that says it's approved. The reality was, when I first came in the office, the only time that we ever contacted a homestead applicant was if we denied it. I said, wait a minute, I don't want to just only talk to these folks with bad news.
Right, you want to tell good news.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it's very important.
One thing right now that I see is probably something you guys deal with a lot, and we get customers all the time that we go out to sell their home, and Robert, you can speak to this, and you go to list their house, and on tax rolls, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot house, and all of a sudden you get out there and it's a 4-bed, 3-bath, 2,100 square foot house, and what happened here? And so, Robert, that's probably something you run into a lot.
Oh, I mean, it happens monthly. I mean, sometimes it happens on multiple appointments at the same time. I mean, I'm not sure how it's updated now. I know when I bought my personal residence, I mean, it said we are 4,000 square foot on the tax rolls, and then all of a sudden it changed to 4,400 square feet, and there was different things that all of a sudden the tax rolls just updated, and we find that with people who have maybe done some work that wasn't permitted correctly, and then they want to count it, and then, I mean, how do you guys normally update that with the county?
Well, we receive all the permits and we work those each year, and so if it's permitted work, we should be updating as that goes along, and we've had. Gosh, I don't even know the number this year, but it's an incredible number of permits.
Of course,
people have been doing work on their homes, certainly.
It's common right now because the inventory has been so light that customers are like, I don't want to go out and risk not getting a home, so I'm just going to improve my current one.
I mean, in addition to that, we've had in the neighborhood of 7,000 new homes that we work with.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously with the
and that's something. There's a really good thing I want to talk about in our next segment about that, because it'll take a little while longer about the new home stuff.
But to get back to your question, there's a couple things. One is that from time to time the bedroom count will be off, and that's something that we deal with square footage, exterior square footage, and the bedroom count really doesn't necessarily matter in terms of valuation from our standpoint.
Sure.
So in those cases, we would encourage somebody, if you're a realtor or if you're a property owner, and you see that that's wrong, let us know and we'll try to change that. There's actually some of my counterparts throughout the state that don't even put that out on their website because they know that it's not
right. So
we're not the keeper of that.
Tasseled,
At one point, I don't think Pinellas did.
Yeah,
they might have changed it, but at one point,
yeah, that's correct. They did, because we own a lot of property over there.
I think with Mike's Woody, they may have put it on.
Yeah.
But that's something that we can change. Administratively, if somebody lets us know, we'll take a look at that. In terms of square footage, if something's not permitted, largely we're going to let the permitting agencies know
if you catch something.
If we catch something, but generally we're gonna add it in. So those things could change. But also, again, the square footage could be different because we're looking at exterior square footage versus interior square footage versus
something could
livable
be air
areas.
Conditioning.
Could
yeah,
be different.
Could be air conditioning. Not. Yeah.
So and we're gonna review every bit of information we can, and we're gonna review all sales. We're gonna look at all the sales. So At that point, we're going to catch some of those things and change some of it.
One other thing I think that's happening a lot is I think a lot of people, they don't want to pay the higher taxes, and they also want to find the cheaper construction guy, so they're not filing permit. We're running into that a lot where people are doing additions
until they go sell it,
right?
And then we run into and then we run into all kinds of problems because they didn't do it right to begin with, and they knew what they were doing. They're like, oh well, we didn't really tell anyone because we didn't permit it because we didn't want to pay taxes. Well, now you have a house that isn't like this addition isn't like legal, it's not permitted, so you can't technically market it this way unless we disclose it. It turns into it's just, I always tell people, just file permit, do everything above board, do it the right way, because if not, it's going to come back and bite you one way or another.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, but there are people that do it. They'll do it, and they'll want their cake and eat it too.
Pretty much everybody that does that wants the value when they go to sell.
Right.
And it's just not the way that it can be. And I always explain to them, hey, even when an appraiser comes to do your appraisal for your loan,
they're going to see that.
They're not going to give you dollar for dollar for this because it's not the correct way. It's just not done correctly.
And not only that, but then it's a risk from an insurance perspective. It's a risk from if the property appraiser catches it and says, oh, wait a second, we got a 500 unpermitted addition, and then they let the permitting people know, and then the permitting people come out and see that something was real. I've seen additions have to get torn out before.
Right.
They had to completely rip the addition out because of how bad it was done.
Most jurisdictions have it like an after-the-fact permitting process. Yeah. But again, if they go out there and they find out that it's not up to specs in terms of whatever it may be, the roof won't hold up to windstorm or the electricity, electrical is not up to par. They're going to make you either fix that or tear it out.
In our experience, we've seen the permitting folks be pretty understanding when it wasn't the person that owns the home now that did it. So in other words, they bought it, they didn't know, one way or another, it was done by a prior owner, and they can show that. Then they're a little less likely to be strict on them. But if they know that person did it, we had one not long ago where the person that owned the house that didn't do the permit was a real estate agent. It's like, come on, you knew better. You're not going to pull one over on anyone acting like you didn't know. You knew you had to disclose. Like, come on, So
I'll tell you the interesting one that's going on, and it's somewhat connected, is that we've had a rash of folks recently that have actually filed VAB petitions for increases in value that said that we had it too low. But what you find out is they're
going to sell the house.
They've either already sold it or they were going to sell the house, and they're thinking about bumping up their portability.
That's an interesting point.
For the last 15 years, when they
Never
considered it undervalued, they were okay. But all of a sudden, when I moved to my next $2 million
you would take that portability with you.
I would have bumped my portability.
That's a great idea, Angela. I hope you're listening. Just kidding.
But the truth of the matter is that in those cases, it generally is added on top of the cap, so it doesn't actually increase the cap. But somewhere along the line, somebody thought that it did, or maybe some jurisdiction just does. But we try to catch those as best. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, people change their mind.
Cake and eat it too thing.
Yep. We're going to be back after a quick break. We're going to continue the conversation next. We're actually going to talk about new construction, buying a new home, whether it's a custom home, a spec home, whatever it is, and how your taxes can be impacted after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.